If you want your child to have the very best, you're probably thinking about a computer in the home. Indeed, that's what brings parents to a store like this. It's called My Child's Destiny, and it has all kinds of educational software so that even the smallest children can get a head start on their education. Today, we're going to be looking at educational software for preschoolers and post-schoolers on this edition of the Computer Chronicles.
The Computer Chronicles is made possible by Leading Edge, makers of IBM-compatible computer systems, including Lotus Lookalike Spreadsheet, word processing with spelling correction, communication software, and Hayes-compatible 1200 baud modem. Leading Edge with over 1,000 service centers nationwide. Additional funding is provided by McGraw-Hill, publishers of Byte. Byte's detailed technical articles on new hardware, software, and languages cover developments in computer technology worldwide.
Welcome to the Computer Chronicles. I'm Stewart Cheifet, and this is George Morrow sitting in this week for Gary Kildall. George, this is not a real computer. It's a kind of toy computer for kids, and it's a good example of how computers have really gotten into the educational field at all levels. This is a little toy you can buy at a toy store for under 50 bucks. It teaches kids math skills, spelling skills, and so on. For instance, we're in a spelling game right now.
The correct answer is C-U-P, cup.
And it's asked the kid to spell what that picture is, and it's a cup, and you can see the computer actually talks. Now, last week we were talking about educational software in the schools. Today we're talking about educational software for home use, for individual self-improvement, on-the-job training, that kind of thing. Computers have been blamed for putting people out of jobs. You think computers can be used effectively to train people for the new jobs?
Well, Stuart, I've spent a lot of time with user groups, and the professionals are using this as a transitional tool now. It's obvious talking to them. The challenge for the industry is going to be to put some entertainment in some of these products so that people in professions other than people like accountants and things like that will be able to make transitions the same as those people are.
And I guess this is a good example of combining entertainment with education.
Sure.
We're going to see some real cutting-edge examples of educational software today, including Laserdisc computer combinations and online electronic university classes. Now, one nice thing about using a computer in education is that with a computer, you can be a student anywhere, even at home on your ranch.
It's 35 miles to downtown San Francisco from the AAG Ranch in Pleasanton, California. Lourdes Giovannini makes the trip to the city every day, where she holds a full-time job at a medical office. She's also raising 2 children, and she helps out at the family's Peruvian horse ranch. Lourdes does not have much spare time, so when she decided to take college courses, she looked for a different approach. Her solution was to enroll in classes online through her personal computer. With a modem and software supplied by the Electronic University, Lourdes can follow her lessons in business law on her own time, from her home or at work. The course is personalized to her level of prior study. Lessons appear on the screen, much like a typical software tutorial, but the course is closely based around a textbook. Like any online database, the Electronic University provides students with information resources. But alongside a standard encyclopedia and reference database, the communications link is interactive, much like an electronic bulletin board. Lourdes takes her exams on the computer and finds out the results about 48 hours later. If she wants to consult with her teacher, she can ask to set up an online appointment. Educational telecommunication services are clearly limited in their course offerings, although some even offer master's degrees. But for students who are faced with time constraints and adult responsibilities, the opportunity to pursue higher education over a telephone line is a reward in itself.
Joining us in the studio now is Jim Becker, president of Terrapin Software here in Mountain View, California. And next to Jim is Mary Cron, vice president for educational products at First Byte of Long Beach, California. Mary, we were talking a week ago about educational software in the schools. Today we're talking about educational software that can be used at home. And you have material that can be used by preschoolers, for example. Can kids handle really working with a computer and software when they're 4 or 5 years old?
Well, yes, and one of the reasons has been the advances in the interfaces that now computers have available. For example, the mouse. The program that you're going to see, or part of it, only uses the mouse. So for the child, it's a matter of moving the mouse and pressing a button, other than no keyboard skills. They aren't required to have their hands in certain positions or things like that.
What do you think do they get fun out of this? What are the benefits for the child?
Well, educational benefits. For example, this program, they would learn geometric shapes while having a whole lot of fun. And that's the idea. To me, the computer is a tool that the kids can use to experiment with, just like they use color crayons and paints. It's another tool.
Mary, show us shapes. What does
Sure.
it do?
This is First Shapes, one part of it called the Toy Factory, where the kids use geometric shapes to build toys. The teddy bear guides them through it, and we use synthesized speech, Smooth Talker synthesized speech, also developed by First Byte. Asked for a part of the body, the child selects what they would like to see, and I'm going to pick an oval head. Each time the child builds a toy, it's different. And we'll have circle legs.
So the child is learning the geometric shapes
That's right.
while he's playing and building these toys.
That's right. Try square arms and a square face. And the robot is finished.
Okay, that's great. Could you turn the volume down on that, Jim, so we can keep on talking here, because Smooth Talker is going to keep on going. Matter of fact, while I'm talking to Mary, if you could reconfigure, because we're going to get into something much more complicated there. Mary, what about the voice aspect of this? How important do you think voice is in especially preschool software?
Well, I think an auditory component to educational environment is incredibly important, because some kids do not learn unless they can also hear it. And as a tool to experiment with, they need to see and to hear as well as to do. And the synthesized speech, for example, like Smooth Talker here, allows them to do exactly that. And
You're not worried about kids trying to talk like
No, I knew you were going to ask that. They don't end up sounding like the teddy bear, believe me.
I hope not.
Jim, you're doing work with the laser disc.
That's correct.
Well, why don't we get into that?
Okay, this is actually an information system that Laserdisc is part of it. And it allows you to author different sorts of information and store that information. With the emergence of the optical technologies in the 80s, there's enormous amounts of storage capacity.
Right.
But it's historically been very difficult to find information.
That's
so what
right.
this does is provides a consistent, easy way to find information. What you see here is this is information about the National Gallery of Art. This is in Washington, D.C. And the system is presenting that information to me, and I can select exactly what I'm interested in.
You pulling data off a hard disk now or a laser disk?
Okay, this is off the hard disk.
Okay.
Okay. Now, for instance, if I want to see paintings, what I can do is access the paintings from different time periods. Let's say I want to see Flemish paintings. Now, what this is doing is it's directing the Laserdisc to position to Flemish paintings. Then I can use the keyboard to go forward.
So now you're calling up the frames from the laser disc.
That's correct. And I can set them in a play mode and speed them up or slow them down and look at those frames. Okay, normally you don't want to go through the frames in this manner if you're looking for a specific piece of art, considering if you're in a classroom situation, for instance. Let's assume that I want to bring up something from a particular artist. Okay, what I can do is select that I want, let's say I want Picasso, for instance. Now what it's doing is it's loading the index into memory.
So what you have here, you're overlaying laser disc storage with an information access method.
Right. I want to emphasize that Laserdisc is just a small aspect of this program.
So what
there's
InfoMinder
quite a bit more that you can do with the system.
InfoMinder, excuse me, Jim, is really managing the information coming in off the laser disc and organizing it in a way that you can use it?
Well, Laserdisc is a resource. Now, all the information that is in here is something that's accessible. Okay, the Laserdisc is being used as the resource so I can access a specific frame or specific sequence of frames. So I can select which piece of art that I want to access.
Okay,
and then
so
it will
you
put
just
that
call
up.
up that particular painting, for example.
That's correct. So I can call up any one of these paintings.
Could I build an access network that showed me the progression of certain kinds of art, schools of art?
You can organize the information any way that you want. The system comes complete with an authoring language and a compiler to create it so it's very fast access time. So I can go and access information in an extremely rapid way. Now it also does word processing.
Suppose
and
I was looking
graphics
for
and
all
things
paintings
such as
that had flowers in them. Could I do that?
If someone had organized it that way, where you wanted to look at paintings that were with flowers, we can go into an outline mode and take a look at the way that these are organized. These are all organized by the actual painter. Okay, so I can look through this. and that goes a little fast, so I can just page through it if I'm interested in that, or I can slowly go down through it. Or if I want to type in, for instance, Picasso, we can look for Picasso and put him back up, and then get his information here.
And can you pull up a Picasso painting now from the disk?
That's correct. That's what I just did.
Okay. And then can you get rid of the computer overlay so you can just see the painting?
Sure, we can turn that. We can turn that one on and off, and we can turn this on and off.
And then you can access text information describing that painting?
That's correct. If that information had been entered in.
If I wanted to go through and mark certain kinds of painting with characteristics that I decided to fashion myself, could I build that and store it? That type
Yes,
of...
if you wanted to. You can organize this information whichever way you want. That's why we have the authoring system as part of that.
And I can identify each painting the way I'd like to identify it for my own purposes.
That's correct.
Jim, George, thank you. We've got to move on. Now, laser discs are also being used in very specialized applications, and one of them is taking place at the Stanford Medical Center, where Wendy Woods has this report.
We've got a white male, early 20s, who was stabbed during a fight outside River Tavern. The victim and his girlfriend left the scene, and our guess is that they're headed your way right now.
This could be the ultimate video game, or the best example of educational software, because the lesson here is how to save a life. At Stanford University Medical Center, students have access to a state-of-the-art laser video disc system, which is driven by a powerful microcomputer. It's made by Intelligent Images of San Diego. In this lesson, students must choose the steps necessary to save the life of a stabbing victim. Depending on what the student chooses to do, by touching the screen and pointing to an option, the video disc responds with a different scene. If the wrong choices are made, the patient dies. Instructors see the system as a powerful teaching tool.
This gives them immediate feedback, which is nice, and gives them the chance to manage a patient all by themselves, which is something that they don't get to do until very late in their careers most of the time.
Certainly with the video disc being boosted by the computer, the capability is growing tremendously. A lot of hospitals and medical schools are very interested in getting this type of system such as we have here, and I think it's a learning tool of the future.
Interactive video also provides the flexibility to fit into the mostly hectic schedules of medical students. But most importantly, these lessons are perfectly suited to this medium. If a student makes the wrong choices, he can go back and try again. Real life in the emergency room is not as forgiving.
Well done.
For the Computer Chronicles, I'm Wendy Woods.
Hey, we're a crack team too.
Joining us now is Mark Patterson, president and founder of MindBank of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and back with us is Jim Becker, president of Terrapin Software. Mark, we've been looking at Laserdisc computer combinations here in educational software. You've got some program here called Name Game. Tell us what it is.
Well, it turns out that for business training, one of the most important skills a leader, a supervisor, certainly a salesperson could have is remembering names. And yet everyone admits a lack in that area. We've got a product called the Name Game, which not only teaches the skills of remembering names, but provides a simulated environment where a person can actually practice those techniques. As an undercover agent, you're assigned to attend a party at the U.S. Embassy in France, and as you mingle in that party, you meet literally hundreds of people. There's a suspected deadly plot about to occur, and the key to stopping that plot is remembering the names of those you meet. You're equipped with a special spy briefcase, and then you begin by making contact with Sasha Stravinsky.
Names. Get names. So you're the new person. Passports, huh? Well, I hope you're the cooperative type. Too many petty jealousies around here. I'm Carol Miller, the administrative officer of this embassy.
Wonderful woman. Now, the computer will randomly present you.
You're not going to recognize this guy, right?
Exactly.
We're new around here.
You do remember?
Tom Fogarty.
Come to me for advice.
Okay.
The new ones always do.
So,
you know who I am.
and now I get a chance to identify
That's
him.
right. Who is it?
Tom Fogarty.
All right, let's type in Susan Smith.
Okay. Thumbs down. I missed.
Names are important. I'll never forget the time I was called back to the Pentagon. One of those briefings. Dozens around the conference table. If I hadn't recalled Colonel Haskins' name, I never would have had the chance to make my famous suggestion about troop rations. Did I ever tell you that story?
As you can see, this will go on, totally unpredictably.
What else are we going to get from you?
We've got a whole series of courses on everything from sales management to supervisory skills, technical skills.
All as interesting as this?
All of them interactive simulations you can strap yourself into as you literally immerse yourselves in experiences and learn by doing.
Mark, we're out of time. You got to develop a program for time management for me, okay? We're going to be back in just a minute with 2 different approaches to online education, so stay with us. Joining us now in the studio is Luba Levitsky, Educational Programs Marketing Manager with Control Data Corporation. Luba, we've heard about the Plato system from Control Data for a long time. What is Plato? Give us a little background on it.
Basically, Plato is a highly interactive, graphic-based, individualized, computer-based education system. And by individualized, I mean self-paced, and the instruction is tailored to the needs of each individual student.
Okay, you're online now with Plato on a chemistry lab experiment of some sort, and show me what this does.
Basically, this is a simulation of a fractional distillation experiment, and it simulates operations and processes of an actual experiment. Prior to this screen, the student has already touched the screen and assembled the distillation apparatus as they would in a regular experiment. The objective is to heat the still and to obtain a pure mixture of 2 chemical compounds. And the student does that by basically touching the warm and watching the temperature here, and then waiting for the feedback at the top of the screen to determine when the simulation and the distillation actually occurs. Once that occurs, the feedback says it started, and then the student here on the graph is required to collect up to 10 fractions by touching the receiving pot. It's marked then on the chart here, and then afterwards they're going to collect several samples and combine them to obtain a pure mixture. However, what's just happened here is that the student overheated the still, and the still blew up.
It blew up.
Exactly.
Okay, it's pretty good simulation then.
Exactly. So what you see happens is it's something that the student really can't do in a lab situation, and this is a good precursor to understanding how to function in a lab situation.
Now, we've also heard about Plato in terms of foreign language instruction. I think you have a Russian demonstration you can show us too, if you can get that going.
We have several hundred hours of Russian materials, as well as French, German, Spanish, and I'll bring up a Russian one for you.
Now, while we're waiting for that to come up, I've heard that Plato, for instance, started really as a mainframe program. A lot of educational software, CAI stuff started moving towards micros.
That's right.
And now there's interest in going back to mainframes and modem connections. Why?
That's right, and that's primarily happening because the schools and in the homes, they're missing the communications capabilities, the ability to engage in electronic mail, bulletin boards, teleconferencing, and the need to collect records and mastery and find out how well the student is actually doing on a lesson, where in the micro environment you can't do that as well as you do in the mainframe environment.
How's our Russian lesson doing?
It's doing just fine, and what we basically have here is a grammar lesson. This is key to a major Russian textbook at the University of Illinois, and basically the student studies vocabulary in this lesson, noun genders, articles, and things like that. And what I'll show you is if the student cannot recall how to type in the Cyrillic letters, they have the ability to bring up a Russian character set and study that, and I'll bring that up for you right now.
So you've got to solve not only the normal language problems, but the graphic problem here of putting up the Cyrillic
alphabet. That's right, and here
alphabet.
what you'll see here is the layout of the keys and actually where the Cyrillic alphabet appears as it would on a normal typewriter.
And there it is.
There it is.
Okay, if you'll come with me, we're going to join George on the main desk over here, and we're going to see another demonstration, so come with me. Thanks, Luba. Okay, George, we're back joining you here now, and also joining James Milojkovic, who's Vice President for Educational Research and Development at Telelearning Systems Incorporated. James, we just saw with Luba one kind of online CAI. Tell us about the Electronic University Network and what it does.
Well, what the network does is it connects the personal computers of students to the personal computers of instructors all across the country.
Now, what kinds of students? Are these traditional students or students who are just going to school on their computers?
These are students who want to pursue a degree program and they want to take credit courses, and our network allows them to do that in the comfort of their own home.
James, give us an idea for our viewers about the costs and the time involved in these things.
Students will pay an enrolment fee to the network, and they will pay a per-course price that depends upon the tuition charged by the university, and that differs from different schools. Basically, a student can take a course at their own pace, and they can complete it as quickly or as long as they want.
I see. Now, this is a question for both of you. You've both been working with universities. What's their attitude? What are the faculty's attitude toward this kind of program?
Our experience has been that they're becoming more receptive, especially if in the beginning of the program they are involved in actually developing the computer-assisted instruction material, because then it's more of their program as opposed to something that someone else has developed.
James, have you people found the same thing?
Well, we've had a different model. We've actually based the development of courses on master teaching techniques, and we don't have the machine teach the student. We directly connect the student to the teacher, and we actually have the teacher be viewed by the student as a mentor, and then the student actually gets direct instruction by a living human being.
James, you're online here. Let's see how I would communicate as a student with my instructor.
Okay, what we've already done here is we've downloaded a message to the computer, but I think you can see from the main menu here that it's menu-driven. Let's actually read the message that we've downloaded. There's lesson 1 for the course, and on the other side of the screen, in just a moment, we'll see the message from the instructor. On the other side here, we have the help keys to help the student have any problems. And basically what's happening here is that there's a message from the instructor telling the student who the instructor is, what's going to be in the course, and then there are projects or assignments that the student is told to complete.
Okay, so I can find my first lesson here and know what my assignment is actually to begin this course.
Here's the first assignment. The student hits a single function key to go over. There's the personal file assignment. Another window will come up on the other side of the screen with the student's work in a window over here, and they can work over here and they see the instructor's message on the other side.
So I can deliver my report, as it were, my work assignment, to my instructor again online.
Directly.
What kind of response, after I do solve a problem, or if I have a question, how quickly can I get a response to it?
Basically, we ask our instructors to respond within a limited amount of time, usually 24 hours or maybe 2 days. Motivation is the key component here, and we want our instructors to respond as quickly as possible.
Luba, one last question. We only have about 30 seconds left. What do you think the future is? Are we going to really expand to see more use of computers, especially massive use in education?
I believe we will see a greater use of computer-assisted instruction, especially as the programs become more interactive and provide the kind of individualized instruction that students really need to take in a non-traditional environment.
Luba, James, thank you very much. We're out of time. Thank you for joining us in this edition of the Computer Chronicles. Stay tuned for this week's Random Access File. In the Random Access File this week, the new Apple IIgs is due in retail stores any day now. The basic machine will sell for just under $1,000 and include 256K and its much-touted enhanced graphics and sound modes. The IIgs has 2 high-res graphics modes and can handle 15 voices simultaneously through its specialized sound chip. Apple says the IIgs is compatible with most Apple II software. Apple will also be selling an upgrade kit for the IIe that turns it into a IIgs. That upgrade kit will cost $500. You cannot upgrade a IIc. The full IIgs system with drive and color monitor will run around $1,800. The 16-bit IIgs will run about 3 times as fast as the older Apple IIs and, of course, doubles the standard RAM. The computer will be built in Singapore. The first 50,000 will carry the signature of its designer, Steve Wozniak. First word from reviewers is that the IIgs is an impressive machine, not quite as good at graphics as the Amiga, but a real threat to the Amiga due to its software compatibility with older Apples. Atari says the high price on the IIgs means it will not threaten the 1040 ST. Atari's Sam Tramiel dismissed the IIgs as a, quote, yuppie machine. Meanwhile, word out of Wall Street is that Atari is about to go public. Investment sources say Atari will soon offer $50 million worth of stock in an effort to bring new resources into the company. IBM is slashing prices on PC Junior software and accessories. There are reportedly some 400,000 PC Junior users out there. The PC Junior version of Lotus 123, for example, has been reduced from $300 to $99. IBM also announced that it will reduce its workforce by several thousand people this year through a new retirement incentive program. IBM thus can cut its costs while maintaining its no-layoff policy. And Hewlett-Packard is doing the same thing, trimming some 1,500 employees through its new voluntary severance and retirement program. Lotus is going to try to turn the trade deficit around by starting to sell 123 in Japan. Shipment began this week. The Japanese version of Lotus is written for the NEC 9800 computer and the IBM 5550 series. There's a new magazine out for modem buffs called Online Access Guide. It will be bi-monthly and feature articles about online information services and modem communications in general. The first issue is due out later this month. Annual subscription rate will be $18.95. Time for a look at software in this week's review with Paul Schindler.
You know, there's more information on a hard disk than there is in this whole stack of floppies. Now, floppies I can manage by stacking them in piles, but on a hard disk, everything is lumped together and you can't even see it. Well, QDOS offers you a way to visualize files stored on hard disks, much as you do with floppies. Now, this isn't the first DOS helper we've reviewed, but it is the cheapest at $30. It's also the fastest and one of the most graphic. This kind of diagram of directories and subdirectories really helps users understand what they have and where they have it. And if you point at a directory or subdirectory on this map, then flip screens, you're in the directory. Of course, the directory entries can be sorted by name, date, or size. But while the program itself is fast, some of its functions take too many steps, which slows you down. QDOS is $30 from Gazelle Systems in Provo, Utah. For the Computer Chronicles, I'm Paul Schindler.
Computer scientists at the University of Florida in Gainesville are working on something called the Mind Link, a way to have computers communicate directly with the human brain. The researchers say if an EEG can read the 1/1,000,000th of a volt signal generated by a human thought, a computer should be able to read that same signal and react to it. Ready for the new industry buzzword, it is communications. The new word was coined by Harvard professor Anthony Ettinger. He says we need the word to understand that communications and computing have become the same thing, using the same kinds of tools. Ettinger says the result of communication will be new companies like IBM CI and Apple TNT. A new study of bulletin board users shows there are 400,000 regular BBS users in the country and that 1/3 of them now use 2,400 baud systems. The average BBS gets 45 calls a day. Finally, operators of France's innovative Minitel Videotech system are concerned about the increasing use of pornography on the system. Any telephone customer in France can get a Minitel terminal free of charge. But now French officials say there is increasing communication traffic on the system for prostitution and other kinkier sexual encounters. The French say they do not intend to spy on users, but that they also don't want the system to be hijacked by pornographers. That's it for this week's Chronicles. We'll see you next time.
The Computer Chronicles is made possible by Leading Edge, makers of IBM-compatible computer systems, including Lotus Lookalike Spreadsheet, word processing with spelling correction, communication software, and Hayes-compatible 1200 baud modem. Leading Edge with over 1,000 service centers nationwide. Additional funding is provided by McGraw-Hill, publishers of Byte. Byte's detailed technical articles on new hardware, software, and languages cover developments in computer technology worldwide.